handout.
Okay. Everybody, prepare to be dazzled. Again. Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Ireland. I'm doing my project or my presentation on the concept of positionality. This is a conceptual talk instead of my, handout, my specific article talk. So, what is positionality? Okay, fine. You're twisting my arm. I'll tell you. Positionality is the social and political context that creates your identity in terms of race, class, gender, sexuality, ability status, so on and so forth. And I incorporated this little graphic here that talks about situates a person in the middle and it has their race, their gender, class, education, epistemology, upbringing, motivations. There's another one after this, but as you can see, one of the arrows points out, which means that your identity and your self-conception produces your worldview, and it also embodies or encompasses your research context. So you're not really separate. Well, in the social sciences, in the humanities, we're not really separable from our work. We are not very, we can practice objectivity, but there is no true objectivity when you're practicing or acknowledging your positionality. And I included this picture of, this diverse group of women to, kind of shed a light on that because it's Black Feminist Week, tried to find some Black women there. And positionality has a lot to do with your social location. So when I was getting my master's in American Studies, we beat this into everybody in our first year that like your social location is unique only to you. You might share overlapping identities or like numerous overlapping identities with other people, but only you have your unique perspective. So for example, to continue on what I was saying before, with the social location, the person's positionality is they are in the middle of all these things. They are simultaneously all of these identities. Now, they might not be visible all the time. They might not be as important depending on one context or another. But you're always all of your various identities, which is why I understand why Dr. Gmo thought that I might have been doing intersectionality, because it's a very similar concept. But yeah, an individual's social location is defined as the combination of factors, blah, blah, blah. But it's particular to each individual, which is paramount to our unit on Black feminism. And so I wanted to note that due to individual complexity and difference, relying merely on identity politics and notions of homogeneity do not serve our larger purposes. Speaking of Audre Lorde, she says, those of us who are Black must see that those of us who are Black must see that the reality of our lives and our struggles does not make us immune to the errors of ignoring and misnaming difference. The need for unity is often misnamed as a need for homogeneity. And she also says that some problems we share as women, some we do not. And that brings me to the idea of nomination. So the act of nomination is inherent to the idea of positionality, wherein one's self-selected identifiers and signifiers provide necessary context to their work. If we think about that image again, like you exist as a point and all your identities surround you. You're never not working within that specific context. Even if those contexts are not visible or palpable to others, sometimes you do have to self-nominate. Sometimes you do have to proclaim, come out, or state your identity or your positionality in regard to your stance on your topics, your arguments. So I put together an interesting list of explicitly stated positionalities that were explored in our text. So I have one from Evelyn Hammond's The Combahee River Collective and Audre Lorde, where I intentionally chose people who identified as Black lesbian feminists because, spoiler alert, I also identify as a Black lesbian feminist, and my positionality is always corroborated when I see other people who have my same thing, because even though we all identify as Black lesbian feminists, we do not share the same perspectives. We do not have the same ideas. We don't come from the same place. So for example, Hammonds says she's a Black lesbian feminist, writer, scientist, historian of science. Sorry, hold on. My thing's in the way. Historian of science and activist. The Combahee River Collective are feminists and lesbians. Many of us were active in those movements, including the civil rights, Black nationalists, and Black Panthers. And Audre Lorde states her age. She's a 49-year-old Black lesbian feminist, socialist, mother, and member of an interracial couple. So you can see that sometimes, excuse me, sometimes just naming your positionality is not enough to give further context to your particular contribution on a topic. For example, Hammonds is coming in as a scientist, as a historian of science, and Audre Lorde's coming in as a socialist, as a mother, as these particular positionalities dictate a different context for their texts. And I want to go further on the Combahee River Collective, when they say that positionality also can reveal your biases. It can produce and reveal biases. And so they say that it was their experience and disillusionment within these liberation movements, such as the feminist movement and the mainstream civil rights movement, as well as experience on the periphery of the white male left that led to the need to develop a politics that was anti-racist, unlike those of white women, and anti-sexist, unlike those of Black and white men. So the Combahee River Collective is stating their positionality in reference to other things that they should be in alignment with, but because their particular social locations are unique to them, and just because they are all Black in a space, it doesn't mean that they all have alignment or unity or the same ideas about how to progress. They also shared those same things with white women, that just because they are women, they do not share the same ideas. Just as Lorde said before, some of us share problems as women and others we do not. And so the limitations of the idea of positionality is that sometimes by thinking that you speak for all who share your identity, or sometimes believing that experiences become monolithic, is that you start to espouse these universalist, essentialist ideas. And so Hooks urges us to resist the temptation of universalism, or the belief that certain norms, values, and principles apply universally to all individuals and groups, regardless of their specific circumstances or backgrounds. So the universalist says that as Black people, we are oppressed. We have a unified thing that we all believe and that we all feel, and that we all need to fight for the same thing in the same way. And positionality emphasizes that, like, yes, we face oppression, but on which axis and in what way and to what extent. Positionality will maybe put myself in the room as like, okay, well, I'm doubly oppressed because of my femaleness. I'm doubly oppressed because of my womanhood. I'm doubly oppressed because of my queerness. So positionality gives more context and more padding and more individual perspectives to the universalist conversations. And Regina Austin also was, I mean, all these texts are just so expertly chosen together, not to brown nose, but honestly, these texts were really in line with each other and overlapped in ways that were just like very yummy for me. So Regina Austin also says that then you have like the scapegoating, not scapegoating, but like the spokespersons that literally try to push those monolithic attitudes, push those universalist tendencies onto other people because they represent the race. We've seen many of these, and we got into discourse about some of them, like yeah, so there's that. And lastly, the revelations is that by remaining aware of positionality, it also creates a healthy space for discourse by generating a space for dissent and conflicting experiences that may provoke new inquiries and lines of research. And I like this picture, even though I will say that there must have been an objective truth to this image, because whoever wrote the 9 must have indeed wrote a 9 or a 6, depending on where they were standing. However, for the purposes of my presentation, just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. You just haven't seen it from my side. So that's the end of my official presentation, but I had 2 extra slides to share to talk about myself. I took on this little project to think about myself in this context of like, well, if I were to talk about my own positionality, who am I? Not my traits, not my personality, but just where do I situate myself on this larger social location axis? And if we're looking at, I'm going top across. So this image with me speaking is I'm a researcher. I'm a scholar. I do research and give presentations at places. I'm also an author. I've written 5 books. I'm also a spoken word slam poet. I'm also like a public speaker. I'm a student. I attend protests. I'm a leftist. I'm a liberal. I'm an organizer. I'm a lesbian. I'm college educated. I'm a musician. Like there are a whole bunch of different spaces that I occupy at the same time. And the last one was that above all, I'm an educator. I've taught classes for children, summer camp for Latino students. I've taught adult education. I currently teach in Black Studies here at UMass. I've taught love and sex or gender studies like at my alma mater, Kennesaw State. And so I just occupy a lot of different axes that conflate to make me. And so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you were dazzled. You're on mute.
Yeah. All right. Your timing was perfect. You must have worked on that.
Let's just say I did, yes.
Yeah, I mean the timer rang and you ended. It all worked out quite well. Do you have questions for everyone or
Yes. I'll put them in the chat.
in the chat? And of course, if people have questions for you, that option is available as well. But I didn't want to ask people to ask questions if you had some for us first.
Yes, I do. I'll put them in the chat. Thanks, Kevin. So one of them is